Welcome back to Raid Guides in a Trenchcoat, featuring Golbez. The
Backslash! Backslash!
We've been to the source, we've been to the first, we've been to the moon, and now here we are fighting an emo Thornton von Belzar on what appears to be the surface of Minecraft Mars. The marker dance for this fight is relatively tame and intuitive compared to the wide variety of marker setups that can be interchanged to crutch whichever mechanic your party can't quite seem to figure out. We've got Towers Crutch, Roll Stack Crutch, and I can't actually figure out what these markers are supposed to help. Meteors maybe? Speaking of meteors, Golbez's meteors are meatier than a quadruple bypass burger. Stand anywhere but under them for this first mechanic. You'll then have to resist the primal urge to move after completing a mechanic, alongside the aether urge to fuck over your teammates and the crystal urge to just fuck. That's because the meteors are followed by a cast of lingering spark, which pops a nice big AoE down wherever you're standing but won't show you what the footprint is like until about 4 seconds later when it goes off. If everyone spreads out too soon, there's going to be a lot more mental gymnastics involved in not dying a shocking Pikachu-faced death. This is then immediately followed by
Backslash!
Golbez will cleave half of the arena and then turn around and
Backslash!
I've been sitting on this joke since literally the first day of patch 6.4, and much like anti-vax babies, it still has not gotten old. Gales is a mechanic that's something like a game of 4-Cup Monty, except you know exactly where the balls are and you're doing your best not to find them. The boss will summon astral projections of himself in a pseudo-random order, starting with the north-south line and then the east-west line. Identify where the first clone went and then sandwich yourself into the open lane where the balls aren't present. Easier than hitting a Staples easy button.
That was easy.
But be careful. In response to such a flagrant, "Hey, that was easy," Golbez responds with, "Hey, D's nuts," and invokes the wrath of everyone's favorite Hot Topic Asium with a discount ice blue chroma skin. Dodge the ice along with the second balls, and thus begins the second half of the Fitness Gales Pacer test, which is an aerobic capacity test that gets progressively more difficult as it continues. Pop sprint to launch yourself from the second safe spot to the third, and then the third to the fourth, which is always going to result in you crossing the entire length of the field.
Backslash!
Next mechanic up is Golbez asking Vitra how his sister is while waving the subjugated Azdaya's body around, which is a total red herring because it doesn't do anything the first time it appears. It warns of some random raid-wide mechanics, sure, but the first one you don't need to worry about actually remembering any of what it does. You'll watch your healer's mana bars disappear faster than white girls in a horror movie, and then you'll face the real Azdaya's shadow cast, which will occur in one of two different patterns. In truth, the patterns that come out are a lot like car mufflers as it relates to penis length. Big, loud, showy purple circles, itty-bitty little save spot. Nice, small, can't be seen or heard from 6 blocks away purple circles, a much larger safe area to work with. Depending on which pattern you get, you'll also be either spreading or stacking. Big ring, small peener means that you'll be spreading out to steer clear of the toxic spill of fragile masculinity, or you'll be small ring grouping up with your lights off party. I should really stop harping on this, but I'm safe in the knowledge that anyone I've offended I'll hear coming from over a mile away. In either case, that in or out won't come until later. First, the tanks will have some linear tank busters where taking all 3 kills you outright, but you're given a choice on if you want to take 2 of them, trusting that your off tank will take the third, or you can try and alternate so that it isn't that big of a deal if someone provokes late.
Backslash!
Then you'll be dodging the in or out circle, roughly pre-positioning your stacks and spreads as the second backslash comes out. Now that someone has died to perhaps the freest iteration of Azdaya's Shadow, it's time to reset because Towers 1 is an 8-man check with an unmitigatable knockback tied to one of your healers. Group up in the center around your knockback healer and stand in one of the 4 corners. If you're a DPS, you'll stand on the north side of the arena, and the supports will stand on the south. The 2 players with plane flares will stand in whichever corners do not have the towers because otherwise the jet fuel will melt the steel beams holding back the imminent wipe. This will leave 3 DPS players in the north to get knocked into the triple threat tower, and the 2 supports to get knocked into 20th century New York. If you get knocked just shy of the landing zone, wiggle in. If you hit arm's length, get fucked. The central healer needs to take a step south for whatever line AoE is about to go off, and then everyone can gear up for another Azdaya's Shadow, which will show the mechanic before delaying it longer than 85% of Cyberpunk 2077's content. In the interim, play with the normal mode Exaflares, except now there's no arrow telling you which way the Exaflares are going to strike unless you, exasperated gasp, actually pay attention. You'll either have a north-south prio or an east-west prio based on the party finder description, and then alongside your light party you'll huddle up next to the edge of the corresponding starting spot that doesn't immediately negate your health bar. In case you were unaware, these blue spinning triangles that pop up are called enumerations, which may be confusing to any programmers out there since the only two values for this data type are the number 2 or accidentally dividing by 0. Once the exaflares start going off, you can slide into the corner and wait until they've all gone off for your jumpy melee players to move forward to take one enum, while the long range characters stay still to take the others. This is then followed up with one of the eventide mechanics, where somebody will start running to the eventide triad roll stack spots whether that's the actual mechanic or not. Tanks would stack to the north, DPS stack to the south, and functionally the healers don't have to stack or move from the east-west so long as they don't threaten to clip anybody else. Much like the gullible being written on your bedroom ceiling, it's not about missing out on the attack the first time, it's about not falling for it twice. But if it isn't eventide triad and you don't eventide fall for your teammate's initial bait, you can more or less just stay where you are and take a light party line stack AoE that you're probably already lined up for. After that, slog through some more raid wides and tank buffs.
Backslash!
Time to test your mechanical object permanence to see if you can remember which Asdia's Shadowcast Golbez stored some Karen-coded 3 to 5 business days ago. Dodge the phases of the moon into either your outstack or your in-clock positions before he kicks it back to the Italians. Time for some more meatball summoning, where if you just choose a corner, he may find a poetic way of telling you to cool your jets with some rhyme. One of the 2 safe spots will be held at Icicle Point, which will relegate you all to one corner of the arena. If that wasn't cool enough, you'll have to divide yourselves even further as Light Party stacks force you to choose between uptime for your melee's mental health, or Light Party 2's HP pool for your healer's mental health. In theory, you can shove a healer and your 2 squishiest ranged DPS into that back corner, but that's a discussion between you and your item level. Next up, the Fitness Scales Pacer Test returns, featuring both enumerations and light party stacks, but not necessarily in that order. The Gale clones will prophesize the incoming windstorm, and you'll want to group up with your Light Party 1 to the north and Light Party 2 to the south. Dodge into the first safe spot with your Light Party or enumeration buddy from before, and then the second safe spot will once again be plagued by the Emmett Selk Snowstorm. Watch your partner going into the third safe spot, because if your partner dies in its enumerations at the end, then much like failing to complete a lap for the second time before the sound, your pull will be over. The fourth safe spot of Gales will resolve at basically the same time as your light party or enumerations, which will take 1s to the west and 2s to the east, or whatever horoscope dependent bullshit positioning your raid lead wants to do. Now that we're nearing the end of new additions to mechanics, Golbez will inquire after Vitra's sister once again, and you'll get the exaflare patterns weirder than that one kid in high school. I don't need to say anything more than that because you're already picturing at least one of them. The exaflare will start in the middles of a wall and the safe spot will start in the corner. Once things start to go off, wiggle with your team into the starting spot and then once again do your enumerations in your uptimiest configuration. But now that you've fought for your right to do uptime, stand the fuck still. Directly following the weird ass exaflares and enumerations will be another lingering spark, and you're already making 4 hidden danger puddles, so maybe stop trying to cover the whole battlefield like it's a Splatoon match. Group up for whichever eventide mechanic you didn't have originally, backslash, and then go to your places for
Backslash!
Sorry, had some Nintendo Online latency on that one. Do your in-clock outstack mechanic and don't let anyone die, because the 8-man towers check will rear its ugly head again in the exact same way as before. Then launch immediately into the light party enumeration version of Gales, and then just kinda keep figuring it out. There won't be anything new or altered, and frankly with tome weapons out, if you're hitting this point, it's because you didn't learn the mechanics well enough and deserve to have to experience them over again anyway. But free our buddy Golbez from the wheel, and congrats. That's the Voidcast dive.
Backslash!
Go watch a real guide.